both of Alexander and some of Hercules, of Hector and Lysander, and such great names as these. But of all...
Hello and welcome to today's Battle Mech review. Today we're going to be looking at the Stinger, and this is one that gave me a little time to pause there while I was selecting which intro video to use here, because I was going like, okay, well, which group in the inner sphere is best known for using the Stinger? And the answer is everyone. The Stinger is probably one of the most common battle mech out there, along with the Wasp and the Locust. Those bug mechs were still in production in massive amounts during the Succession War, so there was never a stoppage in production, and there was never any people that had problems getting their hands on either of the bugs that are the commonly known ones. Is the Stinger a great mech? It has its limitations, let's face it, but it has been in service for close to 600 years, and it has been doing a great job at it. So there has to be something about it. So let's look at this scout/infantry hunter. The Stinger is amongst the first light mechs to ever reach full production, but it skipped the primitive technology stage a lot of mech in the late 25th century had. You had a lot of mechs there. You had the Mackie coming out, then you had a bunch of mechs trying all sorts of new things using primitive technology with those big engines, that bad armor, and a heavy cockpit. The Stinger came really at the tail end of this, right as all that technology was evolving further to what would be more or less known as the Succession War standard, even though it started in the Age of War and Reunification War. Never mind that. Earthworks Incorporated wanted to make a copy of General Mechanics' Wasp. The Wasp was selling fairly well, and the SLDF was buying, well, the Terran Hegemony was buying a whole lot of them. But General Mechanics didn't want to sell the rights to the machine or a license to it. Of course, that will not stop very confident and very skilled engineers. There was a massive lawsuit. Everybody was getting sued left and right for all sorts of things. But the lawsuit really didn't matter because the Terran Hegemony just didn't care. They bought every Wasp that was coming on the market and every Stinger that was coming on the market. At the end, General Mechanics just let it go, and Earthworks kept producing the Stinger. Unlike General Mechanics, though, Earthworks did the smart thing and started selling licenses to build the Stinger. Like, heavily. Like, everybody that showed up at Earthworks' doorstep basically had someone asking them, like, do you want to build the Stinger? Nowadays, you have 17 corporations building the Stinger in various setups, but even during the Succession War era or even the Star League before, it was probably one of the most common mech in existence because anybody could build it as long as they paid the kickback to Earthworks. All the body kits for the machines are fairly rugged. The actuators are really, really good. It's one of those things that I don't need to change very often when they show up. Usually it's the armor that's completely beat up. And the machine on general patrol and general duty will require less maintenance than usual. The big issue is that the tiny little head at the top of the Stinger is, well, very tiny. You will be uncomfortable in the cockpit if you're anything more than 5'10". If you're taller than that, you will probably be asking to be transferred to a Wasp or a Locust or anything with a cockpit that you can actually sit on and have a drink of water at the same time. Your basic Stinger is a 20-ton mech like the other small bugs. It's really at the bottom of the curve in terms of mech size, and it will show its weight once it gets into combat. It is using a fairly common GM120 fusion. Normally, you will see about 8 different engines on those things, depending on which corporation built the darn thing to begin with. And you get speeds of up to 96 kilometers per hour in the best conditions, which is perfectly reasonable for a mech of its era. You get 6 Chilton 360 jump jets. Those were the good ones. You didn't crash if you were using them because they were, well, fairly modern compared to the primitive jump jets on the early Wasps. And you get a jump range of about 180 meters, which is very reasonable. For additional protection, you get 3 tons of standard plates, which is not very much, but I mean, on a 20-ton mech, you have to make trades for something. And you get 10 built-in heat sinks, which is more than enough to compensate for the heat generated by the mech because there's nothing on there that is going to generate a whole lot of heat. Your basic Stinger runs a Omicron 3000 medium laser. Strangely enough, it's an unusual weapon. You don't see it mounted on most other mechs, but there's so many of them on the market because the Stinger is so common. So you will see the Stinger's medium laser being mounted on other mechs and not the other way around. For the machine guns, you may get a pair of Lindblad 7.7 millimeter machine guns on there, usually mounted on each of the forearms. You have the kit here that we see where the both machine guns are mounted on one arm. I have a very odd number of pictures with that particular setup. It's just what is showing up in the factory and what is being given to me by various operatives on the field. There honestly aren't that many early variants of the Stinger because the darn thing worked in what it was meant to do. It could scout and it could kill infantry. That's all that really mattered to a lot of officers. In 2581, you have the STG-3G that took out the machine guns to put another Omicron in the other arm and another gun mount. And this allows it to have a little bit of a tougher armor as well because you use the weight used for the ammo to add armor to the body. This one is pretty decent, but you lose on that ability to fight infantry. So it's really up to the commander what they want to do. There's odd versions that remove the medium laser and replace it with 4 small lasers. One that takes out the jump jets to add more medium lasers and armor. You've got all sorts of weird things that came up with the Stinger, but none of them were standard. The only other real variant at the time was the Royal Stinger, which came out in 2720. This SLDF version uses all the fancy bits and bobs with an endosteel chassis, an upgraded GM140XL, giving you speeds of about 120 kilometers per hour, and an extra jump jet to give you the full jump range of 210 meters. It's going to be more mobile, it's going to be freakishly expensive, but for weapons you get a medium laser in each arm, a backup medium laser in the center torso, and a backup small laser in the head because the pilot had too much room to wiggle in there. This has tons of punch, it's really fast compared to regular Stingers or mechs of the era at least, so it works really well for just about everything that it does. With how many 3 series were out there, it was still in production by the time of the Jihad, and there was another 3 series Stinger that came out at the time with the STG-3P, which was built by just about everyone because of just how many people needed machines at the time. This one has an endosteel chassis and 4 tons of ferrofibrous plate, so it's fairly well protected. And it's meant to be a mid-range skirmisher, with all the weapons being replaced by a Lord's Light 3 or Physigon Mini or whichever you are able to find, light PPC, which is mounted in the right torso. You will also find, obviously, somewhere the light PPC is mounted in the arm in the gun mount. It's a Stinger. People have it, and people will try to fix it in order to be able to fight, even though it should just be scouting. As a mid-range skirmisher, this one will work fairly well, and you can use it as a scout still because it's still just as fast as it needs to be. So this is a decent replacement for your original 3 series Stinger. There is a single 4 series Stinger that came out in 3074 during the Jihad. This one's a dedicated brawler with a medium pulse laser in each arm in the gun mounts and 4.5 tons of standard plates. To make room for all of this, you get an endosteel chassis, which was pretty common at the time for the Stinger, and it used the normal engine of the time as well, a Lean-X 140XL, giving you a top speed of about 115, 120 kilometers per hour, depending on the terrain. You get those terrible medium pulse lasers, but on a mech that fast, you're going to be able to bring them to bear, and you're going to be accurate enough with them that you can jump and shoot them, or run and shoot them, and you'll still be good enough at taking out various things. I don't think it's a terrible design. I would prefer medium X-pulse lasers, of course, but those weren't really available in 3074, at least not on the mass market. You could probably refit it with some different parts and would make it even better. The 5 series Stinger started walking off the assembly line around 3050 with the STG-5N, right in time for it to be blown up by a bunch of assholes from beyond the periphery. This kit takes advantage of Earthworks' new, at least at the time, orbital endosteel mill, and allows it to toughen up the hide by about half a ton. To increase survivability even more, one of the machine gun is replaced with an anti-missile system, while the other machine gun is replaced with a Flametech flamer, meaning you still have very good anti-infantry capabilities, while you're slightly better defended. I'm not 100% sure it's a very nice trade to put an anti-missile on a light scout. It's going to increase your survivability by a small margin, but it's not going to make you, better than getting extra armor. This one sold fairly well. It does fairly well on the field as a scout. I don't have that many complaints about it in the end. After that, you have a ton of different 5 Series Stingers that all went their own way. The Torian Concordat, with the help of some people from the Word of Blake, designed the STG-5R, which is a bit odd because you'd think it's a Marion machine in the end. The big upgrade was to make the head in the cockpit actually not terrible and uncomfortable by making it a little bit bigger and setting it up as a full head ejection system. You get 3 tons of standard ferrofibrous plates on there. It's not a whole lot, but it's still better than nothing, and it's a slight improvement from the STG-3R. Your gun mount is now an ER medium laser, giving you a little bit more range, and why I'm saying it should probably have looked more as a Marion machine is because it has a 15-rack rocket launcher on each side torso. So you have a fantastic one-time short-range punch, and then you run away, because that's the smart thing to do in a scout. The 3068 STG-5T was built by whoever, from wherever, as long as it was going to be used on one of the many border skirmishes the Capellan Confederation, the Magistracy of Canopus, or but just about whoever had them. This one uses the same full head ejection system as the 5R and the same 3 tons of ferrofibrous plates, so it's basically a 5R. For weapons, however, what you have is a pair of 3 tubes/rack of multi-missile launcher in each shoulder, with 2 tons of reloads in the center torso so you can shoot SRMs and LRMs. This makes it a weird kind of skirmisher. You can use it to generate some smoke all over the battlefield using smoke rounds from those LRMs. It can be used to just punch through a hole with SRMs or something along those lines. It's definitely not bad, but it's very different from your standard Stinger. The last of the lot was the 3076 STG-5G, which combined a little bit of everything. The full head ejection system is still on there, so the pilots are more comfortable, and it uses that Lean-X 140XL and endo steel chassis and 4.5 tons of standard plates. Your main gun is a light PPC coupled with a PPC capacitor, so you get a very, very nice punch at a decent range. But you have to charge it up in order to get that kind of firepower, so you're not going to be shooting as fast as some of the other people. In order to cool things down, you get double heat sinks, which is not common on a Stinger, but you will probably need it with a PPC capacitor weapon. So this one is pretty decent as well. There was a new 6 series that started coming out in 3067 with the STG-6L, completely out of left field by Aus Liao. This one is very different. It has no jump jet, and it uses an Hermes 160 fusion to give you Locust kind of top speeds. The armor is replaced with 4.5 tons of stealth compound with a Guardian ECM. For a scout, that is pretty fantastic. And for weapons, it takes a cue from the 3G and has a medium laser in each arm, and the whole thing is cooled down by double heat sinks because that stealth armor is going to generate a whole lot of heat. It's pretty decent as a scout. Don't use this as a frontline battering ram, obviously, and it's going to work fairly well in that role, and it's going to be able to come back with the information it gathered most of the time. The Lyran Alliance released the STG-6S in 3069, and it started using their brand new light engines. This time a light 140 to save on a little bit of weight while giving you a boost of speed compared to the standard Stinger. You also get the extra jump jet on there to give you the full jump range of 210 meters. For even more speed though, they set up a mask in the musculature to give you a top speed of 150 kilometers per hour in short bursts. You get 3 tons of heavy ferrofibrous, which gives you okay protection, while the main gun is an ER medium laser with a pair of light machine guns for extra range when fighting infantry. This is going to be a nice short-range skirmisher. You get a decent enough amount of speed, and honestly, if you've lost a side torso on a mech this size, you're probably good to good and gone already. So whether it was a light engine or an XL doesn't make a huge difference, at least not in my book. Earthworks made an official 6 Series Stingers in 3097 using the basic Stinger engine and the 5M's Endosteel chassis. It's basically an upgraded version of the original 5M at this point. You get 3.5 tons of plate and double heat sinks to keep it cool because it has a renewed weapon loadout. Your base weapon are now extended range, so you have an ER medium laser and an ER flamer, giving you an okay range overall. The anti-missile system is replaced with a fully modern laser anti-missile system, which doesn't run on ammo, but will run you a little bit hot. It is quite a nice little upgrade, and it's not going to run you too terribly expensive. The Republic of the Spear commissioned a brand new Stinger in 3103 with the STG-6G. This one uses a medium X-pulse laser as its main gun, so it's pretty decent in terms of accuracy and range, and you have your 2 basic machine guns as a backup. Your engine is that Lean X140XL, which is very common on Stingers at that time, and you get those 7 jump jets to jump around 210 meters. You get 4.5 tons of standard plates and double heat sinks to keep you cool and protect you well enough. This is a very nice, straightforward upgrade from the original. And like I said earlier, if you are losing side torsos on your scout mechs, your mech's pretty much gone anyways, so it doesn't really matter if you're running an XL engine. The final 6 Series Stinger came out of the Republic of the Sphere once again, and they liked their 6G, but they thought it was not fast enough. The modern one uses the Locust's LTV 160 XL and 8 jump jets to give that STG-6R 130 kilometers per hour top speed and about 240 meters jump range. You get 3.5 tons of plate on an Endosteel chassis, cooled by double heat sinks once again. For weapons, you get an ER medium lasers and a pair of heavy machine guns, which will be able to chew through infantry, but you won't get that good range on them. It's really up to you, but once again, it's a nice upgrade for your standard Stinger. There is a single 7 Series Stinger, this 7S, which came out of the Lyran Common Alliance, whatever they decided to be called at that point, in 3077. This one is just stupid. It uses 8 improved jump jets rather than putting a bigger engine in and more jump jets to be able to move more, and your only real weapon is an ER medium lasers with 3 tons of standard plates to protect you. This is honestly a hard pass. Improved jump jets just aren't worth it on a mech that size. But what about the clans? Well, there were quite a few Stinger in the SLDF when General Kerensky decided to take them into exile. It was mainly used as a trainer amongst the clans, and Clan Elzors made their own original Stinger C in 2832 or so. The body was made out of good Endosteel, and 4 tons of plates were able to protect the Civ Cadet from arm. For weapons, you have an ER medium pulse laser with a coaxial small pulse laser, meaning you're going to be really good at taking out infantry, combined with a pair of machine gun with half a ton of reload, which is a little bit more sensible than a full ton. It's going to be able to chew through infantry really well. It's going to be able to teach pilots how to move with their mechs, how to shoot with their mechs, how to jump with their mechs. It works perfectly well as a trainer and as a light scout until you get things like the Fire Moth or the Mist Lynx to replace them. The other Stinger C, the Mark II, came out of Clan Blood Spirit and is closer to your Royal Stinger in terms of weaponry. It's also made of Endosteel and uses 4 tons of plates in order to protect whoever's training into it. But this one has a pair of medium lasers, well, ER medium lasers, so almost large lasers. It's a very decent gun, and a single small pulse laser to take out infantry. This is actually a very decent mech. It's going to teach pilots how to do a whole lot of things, once again, and I would say that if you are to face those things on the field with your own Stinger, you are going to regret it. There is an official Stinger 2C as well, which came out of the Raven Alliance in 3085. We'll give this mech its due at some point, but it's still more or less a Stinger with a 120 engine, ferrofibrous plate, Endosteel chassis. Fairly straightforward for that. And in terms of weapon, it kind of matches your original Stinger, at least the Royal variant, with a pair of improved heavy medium laser and an AP Gauss rifle. It's a very deadly skirmisher. It's going to do a whole lot of damage for its size. We will go into it at some point. The Stinger being so popular, it was also selected to become one of the models to become a land-air mech for the SLDF. This was commissioned to Lexitech, who managed to make the things fly at 30 tons. It's bigger than your standard Stinger and much better armed with 3 medium lasers and also better protected with 5 tons of plate. Of course, if you lose any part of your mech, you can't transform anymore, so is it really that much better protected? It is up to you. Like most lambs, this design is more or less extinct nowadays because Clan Novacat really ate fun and blew up all the factories and all the designs on the planet of Irache when they took it over. Most Mechwarriors in the periphery, the inner sphere, and even the clans will have piloted a Stinger at least once in their life. The trainer. I didn't, because we had an adder that my dad decided to have us train on originally. That's just life when you've got a family with a few mechs in its belt. It's a simple machine, it's easy to build, it's easy to repair, and it does the job well enough. And I don't see anybody really wanting to get rid of it anytime soon. The newer models are still plentiful, and they do what they're meant to do really well. You've got things with ER lasers, you've got things with pulse lasers, you've got things with machine guns. It'll take out infantry, it'll harass larger mechs. It works for what it's meant to do. The fact that it has ants, I think, makes it a little bit superior to the Locust in order to work around the base and help out, but the Locust is a little bit faster on the ground. It's better on against infantry than your Wasp because the Wasp is equipped with missiles rather than machine guns, but the Wasp can carry Infernos. All 3 of the bugs are very, very common, and all 3 of the bugs are going to be used for scouting in different ways. You choose the one that you have access to, and you teach your people how to pilot them and use them the most effectively. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I will see you guys later, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.